So Susan Hartzler is an accomplished author, award-winning writer, seasoned blogger, and savvy public relations consultant. However, her life isn't solely about her literary accomplishments and professional endeavors. Susan's true passions lies with her pack, two beautiful blue merle Australian shepherds. Alongside Seven and Paige Turner, Susan volunteers as a certified therapy dog team, spreading joy to high school students, including those with special needs. Beyond their therapeutic work, Seven and Paige Turner shine as professional actors and models, recently gracing the cover of 2025 Australian Shepherd calendar by Brown Trout. Their journey reflects Susan's deep dedication to her dogs and her mission to bring happiness and enrichment to everyone they meet, both human and canine. Woof! Susan Hartzler is a lifelong dog lover and award-winning writer who has figured out a way to live her life to the fullest as a single woman, not conforming to the social norms of marriage and children. Winner of the Angel on a Leash Award from the Dog Writers Association of America and the Pulitzer Prize from America's most dog-friendly city, Carmel, California, Susan has created a life filled with joy that revolves around her dogs. She's had 2 short stories published in books, namely New World Library's Dogs and The Women Who Love Them and Atria's The Divinity of Dogs. Both stories were originally created as chapters in her book. I'm Not Single, I Have a Dog. Susan also works as a blogger for hire and writes public relations and marketing materials for a variety of industries. Her current pack, as we mentioned, consists of the 2 talented Australian shepherds, Seven and Paige Turner. I love to play on words with Paige Turner, who Susan has trained to act in commercials and bring their special kind of love to children in the hospitals as therapy dogs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphone, Susan Hartzler. Susan,
Yay.
Good morning. Yes, yay.
That was quite an introduction. Thank you so much, Mark.
You are welcome. As I share with all my guests, many times my guests will say, don't read the whole thing, don't read the whole thing. And I know, I want to, and I shared this last week when I was introducing my guests. The reason I read the whole thing, because there's somebody out there that's listening, that's holding back on doing something. And I always hope the bio will inspire them to say, well, if Susan can do it, I can do it. If it can happen for Susan, it can happen for me. So I always hope as they're reading the bio to say, wait a minute, I can do this. So that's
true. That's so true.
Yeah, that's why I read the whole thing. I mean, unless it's like, I have had those that's been like, you talk about Paige Turner. I've had a few that's been Paige Turner. It's like, no, I'm not reading all that.
Well,
but
short is the new long when it comes to writing, right?
Yes, it is. So, all right, I'll tell you what. So there's a lot of things to unpack here. There's a lot of things going on with the book because the book is The Peace Puppy, a memoir of caregiving and canine solace. And then you have the one we just referenced, I'm Not Single, I Have a Dog. But there's a lot going on within them, like I said, from an emotional standpoint. So we're going to start with, first off, is this something you always intended to do in terms of becoming an author? Or were you an avid reader as a child? Or did you write when you were in elementary school, grammar school, what have you? Where did the whole writing come from?
Well, it did come from grammar school. My 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Ring, who is acknowledged in my first book, told me to be a writer. She thought I had talent. I remember I wrote a story about brains in my pinky. That's all I only remember the title of it. But she thought it was very clever and that I should be a writer. So she planted that seed in the 3rd grade, and I just always knew I was going to be a writer. I am an avid reader, but I always knew I was going to be a writer someday. An author.
See, that's interesting because, again, I know the listening audience gets tired of hearing this because there's a line I say every week. However, I always have to introduce it based on the conversation. When I am not behind this microphone, my day job is a principal. And there's something you said that sparked me sharing that yet again, and that was you heard something from a teacher. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm a big believer in words have power. So the fact that a teacher now saw something in you and says, you would be a writer. And I bet you that teacher had no idea the impact those words were going to have, that you ultimately became one.
Yeah, I wish I could find her and thank her. But, I just thought, ever since she said that it wasn't even a goal. It's just a knowledge. I knew that someday I was going to write books.
But see, again, this is the power of words, the power of our subconscious. Now, because that could work the opposite way. That's why I'm always reminding the folks I work with, be very careful with your words, because if you do it in the negative way, it works that way also. I constantly, anytime I lead a building, for one of the first thing I say whenever I'm introducing folks is, particularly for like guidance counselors or school counselors, and the teachers for that matter, I say, if I ever hear you tell a child he or she is not college material, I'm coming after your license. If I ever hear you say those words, I'm coming after your license. Because
Good for you. Well, and it's interesting because speaking about it, if I can do it, anyone can do it. I'm dyslexic, and I just had to push through. I'm the worst speller on the planet. So I had to push through all those, negatives, but I was determined to write a book. And also, the reason I wrote my first book, I'm Not Single, I Have a Dog, Dating Tales from the Bark Side, is because I figured I wasn't the only person on the planet who made it to adulthood without getting married. And, and that's something I really wanted to do, was get married and have a family. But it just didn't happen for me, and I felt like I had a story to tell and that maybe I could inspire others to just live the life that they have instead of living a life yearning for something that maybe isn't in the cards for them.
Well, that's interesting in terms of, because this is what society does. And the thing, Susan, the questions never stop. In terms of, all right, it may start out when you're going to get married,
Yep.
So then you finally get married. Then the next question, okay, when you're going to have children, Then depending on what sex of the child that you have, if you had a girl, when you're going to have a boy. If you had a boy, when you're going to have a girl. If you have now both, then the questions just go on and on and on and on again. So it's kind of like no one will ever be satisfied, because no matter what, they're going to constantly be asking these questions. And whether, like you said, it's for you or not, or whether you want it, some people don't. Some people just declare they just never, ever wanted to be married. And then there are those that they want to be in it, and it just didn't happen to them for whatever reason. However, I'm saying all that to say, whichever way folks choose, that's on them. I mean, society should not pressure anybody, because like again, the questions will continue. Once you had a kid, okay, when you gonna buy your house? Okay, you buy a house. Okay, when you gonna get the bigger house? Okay, you get the bigger house. Okay, when you gonna get? I mean, it just never stops.
That's true. That's very true. Well, I heard when are you gonna get married forever? So I felt like there was something wrong with me. Which there was. I have a bad picker. I'm lucky I didn't marry any of the men that I went out with, because they wouldn't have been good husbands or fathers. And somewhere deep inside of me, I knew that. So I just didn't pursue that.
Well, and that's critical. That is key. Because especially to have the discernment to kind of get a feel for, because I tell you what, this has been based on my experience. It is extremely, in my view, easy to get married. It is not as easy to get divorced. I mean, if divorce was as easy as getting married, but I mean, to get married takes almost nothing. But to get divorced, depending on how ugly it gets, it's kind of like you can get like War of the Roses. So it's, if they were equally easily to get in and get out of, that'd be what they're not. And so the fact that you said, you know what, I don't think this is going to work, or this is going to be the one, you were smart.
Yeah, it was difficult, but bringing children into the world is you can't take that lightly. Having dogs is a big responsibility.
Correct.
So I didn't, I could have gone the way of being a single mom, but I felt like, I did, actually in my book, I'm Not Single, I did go through the process to adopt a child, and I got on the list through the county. So I got on the list, and I took all the classes and everything. And then my mom died, and I moved back home to take care of my dad, and I got the call, we have your baby. And because I moved to another city, I would have had to go through the program all over again in the new city. And, looking after my dad was a full-time job. He had Parkinson's. So it was a timing thing.
And see, that's where, as I was saying earlier, this has the opportunity because we're dealing with the writing piece over, but we're also dealing with a human element here that in many of my interviews, I don't get. A lot of my interviews are academic or what have you, but yours has a human element between the dogs as well as what you just said. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and read what's here about I'm not single, I have a dog. At age 60, Susan Hartzler has learned to accept, even love, the single life, provided she has good friends and a dog or two by her side. Always attracted to the quintessential bad boy with his good looks and charming ways, she was sure she could change the one, quote unquote, into a devoted partner and a loving father. But her compulsive giving and fixing behaviors went hand in hand with her disappointing and disastrous romantic relationships. On a purposeful trip to the pound, she hoped to find a dog to care for, one that would sniff out the bad guys, give her a sense of purpose, and help her find meaning in her crazy world. Thoughtful and funny, this memoir follows Susan's life through the many ups and downs on her way to finding unconditional love. Her journey is a personal one, full of hard decisions it took to learn to put herself first. Now, I tell you, I am the dean now of self-care. Based on my relationship experiences, I am now the dean of self-care. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And stop entering and staying in unhealthy relationships. By saving a dog, she rescues herself, learning to love herself as much as her dog loves her. Now, in the second book, this is where she was talking about her dad. Are you ready to explore the transformative power of love and the profound impact of canine companionship? Susan Hartzler's new book, The Peace Puppy, a memoir of caregiving and canine solace, invites readers to embark upon a heartfelt journey through the trials and triumphs of caregiving. Now, I don't know about you, if any of you have been a caregiver, that is work. That is a job. In her latest memoir, Hartzler shares her deeply personal experience overseeing her father's care during his final years, revealing the undeniable strain of caregiving. Her moving nonfiction narrative illuminates the many challenges adult children face when they dedicate their lives to the care of their parents and uncovers the extraordinary capacity of the human spirit. What makes her story unique is the inclusion of her rescue dog, Baldwin, who seemingly intuitively offers unconditional love and support to her and her ailing father. The Peace Puppy is more than just a memoir. It's a compassionate guide for anyone navigating the complex caretaker role. It offers practical advice, valuable insight, and lessons learned. Baldwin emerges as the hero in this story, and it's for this reason that Hartzler advocates for anyone in a similar situation to consider getting a canine companion. He somehow manages to keep both Hartzler and her father afloat, providing an unexpected lifeline and, of course, a few laughs along the way. So these are the two books. These are the two books we're going to be talking about. The Peace Puppy, as well as I'm Not Single, I Have a Dog.
Yeah.
All right? So talk to me about, right, with the first one, I'm Not Single, I Have a Dog, because we were asking the question earlier, kind of like, where did this come from? When did you sit down and decide, you know what, I'm going to record this experience and put it in a book?
You know, when I moved home to take care of my dad, and I was walking Baldwin one night, and I just had this thought that, you know, I didn't get married, I didn't have kids, and I thought, I can't be the only one on the planet that this happened to. There's got to be others out there. And that's when I went, that's my book. I have to write a book about this. And what's interesting, when the first book came out, it was right in 2020. So I didn't get to do much book publicity because of COVID.
Right.
But I got letters. I mean, I figured there'd be women out there that would relate. But what surprised me was the men. I got calls, I got emails from men that have the same exact thing. They're trying to fix a woman. They're trying to help a woman. So it really is a universal thing that happens to people. And I was really surprised by that.
No, you're absolutely right. See, this is my deal. And I laugh when you just said it because I can relate. I don't ever go into a relationship trying to fix anybody. However, I always wonder in terms of why it ultimately doesn't work out. And I do know why, because I was just reading something prior to going ahead. Never put anybody on a pedestal. That once you put somebody on a pedestal, they now feel, that you're not worthy of them, what you call it. Yeah. So I was just reading that, but I understand why you're getting it from the men as well. And me personally, I don't necessarily care for being single in and of itself. I function better knowing who my partner is, but at the same time, that does not mean I cannot function as being single.
Yeah.
So I know why this whole single thing, it does not have a gender.
Yes. And I was just surprised by that.
Well, this is the thing, because I think men and women emotionally are more similar than people think. I think everybody kind of just thinks, in relationships is about a female thing, not realizing that men do have feelings too. But again, going back to society, how we're socialized.
You're right.
Right. We're not socialized for men to have feelings. So men try to play the tough role and women try to act like, well, they don't have no feelings like I have. When the truth of the matter is, men have feelings too, just like women have feelings. But we're not socialized that way.
Yeah. Men aren't supposed to share their feelings.
But again, going back to society again, going back to socialization. They're not. I mean, the only thing we're supposed to be able to do is go in the locker room or either talk about sports, talk about women, talk about cars. We're not supposed to have any kind of feelings, this, that, and the other. And now on the flip side, of course, women, because they always say, I want a sensitive man. I want a man who's in touch with his feelings. Okay, the two don't go together.
No, they don't go together. And that's the bottom line of what, I wanted a man that felt, because I'm a very feeling person. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good provider.
Correct.
So, at least in my situation, that was the case. So, I agree with you. It's all these society pressures, and we just a lot of times get it wrong.
No, we do, because again, and that's what, and over the years, because it was really bad, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Over time, it has changed. But it's still, because I'm in school and we were doing an assignment another day and we were doing, interestingly enough, kind of sort of like this thing. Something came up. It was in an article about socialization, about, little boys can't play with dolls. Now, of course, we had the colors in terms of, for girls, it was pink. For boys, it was blue. And a lot of that has shifted. Mm-hmm. A lot of that has shifted in terms of, we don't always associate pink with girls, don't always associate blue with boys, and so forth and so on. And just because of it, because not for nothing, boys play with these little action figures. I don't know if they realize those are dolls, but.
True. But let me ask you this. Okay, so things have shifted, but isn't it just like the surface things that have shifted? Isn't it still that boys aren't supposed to feel?
I agree.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of fathers or mothers, for that matter, who's come into school and their child is crying and they tell them, suck it up. Like, no, don't you dare cry. Don't, you're a boy. You better not cry. Yeah, I hear it all the time.
Oh, wow. That's so sad.
Yeah, it is. So I agree with you in terms of it being on the surface. So in terms of, dinner, because I was never, and I still have them, my pet has always been turtles or either goldfish. As a kid growing up, I always had turtle, either goldfish. Matter of fact, I have a turtle now. It's the one that's lived the longest I've ever had. Most of my turtles will last for a certain amount of time and they all die. I have one that I've had now for the last probably almost 3 years now. And he's grown and he's grown. I did not get into dogs until my last relationship. The person I was seeing at the time, she had 2 dogs and I fell in love with those 2 dogs. One has since passed away, but they were named Mocha and Latte.
Oh, how cute.
And they were named because of their colors. Latte was a light brown color, a beigeish color, and Mocha was darker. So they were Mocha and Latte. Mocha has since been put to sleep. Mocha has since passed, but Latte is still around as far as I know. I have not been in touch with that person, so I'm assuming Latte is still around. But anyway, I'm saying all that to say I did not get into dogs until then. And that's whenever I realized, oh, wow, I see now why. Because I never understood how compassionate but now I see I could see why now people, because I remember having a cousin who had I'm trying to think I think not the Dalmatian, it was the little, I'm trying to think of the real little Chihuahua. I remember I had a cousin who had a Chihuahua, and interestingly enough, the Chihuahua's name was Killer. It was
I love it.
But when Killer died, oh my God, it might as well have been a human. When Killer had to be put down, they went through almost like a depression.
Oh, yeah.
But now, like I said, having dealt for those few years with Mocha and Latte, now I understand why people get that way.
Yeah.
So, whenever I'm sitting, I'm not single, I have a dog. So it sounds like, like I said, I love Paige Turner. I love to play on words. Now, because in this book it's Barker.
Baldwin.
I'm sorry, Baldwin.
So it's puppy, and Blondie is in I'm Not Single. But also, I had a Chihuahua growing up. Her name was Siesta, because that's the only Spanish word my father knew. so she was Siesta, and she was really my first love. I mean, she taught me so much about love. I was the youngest of three, and she became my younger sibling. That dog would do anything for me. I would dress her up. My parents let me take a little baby buggy wherever I went, and I'd put her in the baby buggy. She'd lie on her back and wear these clothes. I mean, she was amazing. So that's where my love with dogs and my started. And that also has been thought of as weird. I mean, I've had people say, you love your dog too much. You're never going to meet someone because you love your dog too much. like love is something that you only have a certain amount of to give.
Right. And see, that's why, I kept seeing the word unconditional.
Yes.
And it's, love is love regardless if it's for a pet or if it's for a human or if it's for whatever.
I like that. Yeah, love is love. That's true. Well, they give so much. And, like, for me, the dog, especially when I was taking care of my dad, because as you said, caregiving can be very difficult. And he had Alzheimer's-like symptoms. A very small percentage of Parkinson's patients get Alzheimer's-like symptoms, and he was one of them. So he would get they get very angry and stuff, too.
Right.
And rather than trying to change him or calm him, or a lot of times I would just take the dog on a walk and just clear my head and then come back, and I would be able to handle things much better. So that's just the mere fact of walking the dog and giving myself space.
Correct.
Just helps tremendously.
Well, like I said, caregiving is no joke.
No.
Now, I did extreme limited caregiving because my mom ultimately wound up with dementia and Alzheimer's as well. But she was in Georgia, and her husband had to do, the bulk of that. But near the end, I was down there and had a chance to help out as well. Caregiving is no joke. My sister has a lot of health challenges, and her husband is her caregiver. And all I can say is, for the little bit of time that I had to do it, and for folks to do that for years, it is no joke. And especially when you start, like you say, you're dealing with Parkinson's, or you're dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's and whatnot, the person that you know and love and always, they become different people.
They become, but they look the same.
Yes.
And they sound the same.
Yes.
So you start talking to them as if they were the person that you knew before.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. And they're like, I didn't, my mother visited with me the year before she passed away. And like I just, dementia and Alzheimer's just never crossed my mind. I didn't know till the end that that's what it was. And when I looked on the death certificate, it said she'd had it for the last 5 years. I was clueless. Absolutely clueless. I had no idea.
Well, plus you probably, there's probably something inside the human brain that doesn't want to allow you to see it.
That's true too.
Yeah.
So
it's hard.
Yeah, it really is. So as you use the dog, okay, so you use the dogs with your dad, and again, I had never had a dog in my life until again the past relationship, and I had the opportunity to walk the dogs and do that kind of stuff, and really liked it. Matter of fact, I've considered, because my youngest daughter, has always said she wanted a dog. We never got one when she was a kid, but I told her, I said, when you buy your house, that's going to be my housewarming gift to you.
Oh,
and so I said, when you
housewarming gift.
Right. I said, when you buy your house, because she's in an apartment. I asked her, I said, if you want it now, I'll get it for you now. But she's like, no, I don't want it. I said, well, when you buy your house, that's going to be, and she already, and we've said this for years now, that's going to be your housewarming gift when you buy your house.
Well, I have to say that Baldwin was a gift from my mom. I had the dog Blondie. She lived to be 19. And when she died, I really fell apart. This is in the I'm Not Single book. And I volunteered at a local shelter. and I fell in love with this little black ball of fluff. And my mom actually called and bought him for me and said, go get your dog. So she died 6 months later. So it was a living, loving testament of my mom's love to me. So that's a really good thing to buy your daughter.
Well, when she gets her house, I'm going to make sure she gets that dog.
Well, you have to call me.
I
tell
will.
me her lifestyle, and I'll help you find the perfect dog.
Oh, great. That will work. Because my knowledge of dogs and types of dogs is relatively limited. But I do know some of the more popular ones. But yes, thank you so much. That will definitely work. So it's the Peace Puppy. So talk to me about how did you come up with that title and so forth and so on.
Okay, this is a great story. So Baldwin was a Poolie. They're the dogs. Well, he was a rescue, but he looked like a Poolie, the dogs in the shows with the long dreadlocks. He was such a cool dog. So at one point, he had to have knee surgery. He had, this is common in a lot of dogs. It's sort of like ACL surgery, but they don't have ACLs, but they have to go in and reconstruct the knee. And so they shaved him down really close, and I just thought, he looks so funny. So I went and bought a Peace stencil, and I got some green hairspray and I used that stencil and put peace signs on his rump. So he became the Peace Puppy, and when I thought about it, I thought, that's really what he is for me. He brings me peace. And it was funny because on walks, sometimes if I didn't have the peace sign on him, people would stop me who I didn't know, and they'd say, where's his peace sign?
Ah.
He became very popular with his peace sign. So I just thought, because he helped keep the peace with my family, with my father. He brought me immense peace. So that's how I came up with the Peace Puppy.
Well, I tell you what, again, this is going back into like health and mental and emotional. My second grade teacher, she's right now in a nursing home. Her son, and I might as well be her son too. Anyway, her son, because her condition had got to the point where they thought she needed hospice. Mm-hmm. And so he put her in Care 1, and, she's in hospice. But when she got in there, she started turning around, coming back the other way, to the point where he texts me and says, we might have to bring Mom home because she's doing so well. So he sends me this picture, and maybe I'll have to text it to you and I'll get you a number. He sends me this picture that they had a dog. He took the dog to Care 1, and she's in the wheelchair, and she's just petting the dog. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could see the dog on her lap, and you could see the joy on her face. So I'm saying animals even help with health and mental and emotional.
Oh, there's studies. With being a part of a therapy dog team, I keep up with that. But, petting a dog will actually lower your blood pressure.
Oh, I need to get a dog.
Yes, there are physical things that physical benefits that dogs bring just naturally. I feel like my blood pressure lowers just looking at Paige Turner. She's so darn cute. She's an Aussie with one blue eye and one brown eye. I love that.
Ah.
So yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And that was another thing. I wanted to share the stories of the things that I've witnessed my dogs doing that are just amazing to me at how they know that's what the kid needs, or,
By all means, share it. By all means.
Yeah. One time, and this is in the book, one time I used to go down to the county hospital in Los Angeles with Baldwin, and he was like a real superstar there. And I was at my local park, and it was about 45 minutes from the hospital, so we weren't in the same neighborhood at all. And I'm walking him in my local park, and this girl comes running across the park, yelling his name, and grabs him and kisses him, and she says, do you remember me? And at the time, we worked with the fire department, going to different schools, teaching stop, drop, and roll with the
That's
dogs
it.
Doing it. So I thought, it probably was one of the school kids that we met. And she said, you visited me in the hospital. I still have the picture. And I have to tell you, I almost started crying. I didn't know who this girl was at all, but my dog made a lasting impression on her.
Wow.
So that was pretty amazing. And the first time we went to County USC, we were brought into a room with a little girl that had just gone through chemotherapy, so none of the other kids could be around her. And she was sitting there. She was all pale. She looked almost doll-like. She looked porcelain. And when she saw Baldwin walking in, he just had this Charlie Chaplin walk. He was such a character. She just smiled and laughed. And, during the hour or so that we were visiting her, he jumped up and lay across her lap, and she started petting him, and she started breathing deep with him, and the color started coming back to her face. I mean, I witnessed a miracle. I called it grace in action.
Right.
It just was, you couldn't deny what that dog had done for that little girl. So, and there's more stories like that. And just, they're just amazing creatures.
They are. And like I said, now I have yet, for those who are into the felines and into the cats, now I have not crossed that bridge yet, because I always love kittens.
There's a saying, you own a dog, a cat allows you.
Now, my sister is into cats. My sister loves cats. And so it was like she has a cat. My niece has a cat. This is going to sound crazy, but I love kittens, but I don't necessarily care for cats. I think kittens are cute. I love kittens.
Are the cutest
they
thing
are.
on the planet.
But now when they become grown cats, I don't have too much for them to do. Now, and I know my cat lovers are probably gonna rail me. I know, I get it. But if I had a choice between a cat and a dog, I'd take the dog. I really would. And like I said, to date, my pets are low maintenance pets. Like I said, the turtle and the all I gotta do is drop a little food in there and they're good. The goldfish or the fish or tropical fish, whatever, same thing. Change the water every now and again. But like I said, I really did get acclimated and accustomed and see, again, after dealing with Mocha and Latte, how people wind up feeling the way they feel. Listening audience, I hope you've been with me since 6, but I definitely hope you've been with me since 7, because my guest, Susan Hartzler, is on the line, and we're talking about a couple of different things, and for the most part, dogs are at the center of it. And she's written the book, The Peace Puppy, a memoir of caregiving and canine solace, as well as I'm Not Single, I Have a Dog. Dating Tales from the, I love a play on words, I told you that. Dating Tales from the Bark Side.
My publisher came up with that subtitle, so I have to give credit where credit's due.
From the bark side. There you go. Because, usually you see from the dark side. And this is from the bark side. Okay. So I'm not saying, because this whole notion of, again, we were going back to society pressures. And I don't know if it's as bad as it was, but maybe it is, that people kind of look at you cross-eyed whenever you're still single or you're single or whatever. And it can mess with your esteem in terms of, well, why don't anybody want me? It can play on you if you don't have a strong sense of self-worth. Mm-hmm. Because at some point you get to, well, you know what? It ain't about me. It's about them. Mm-hmm. It's not my issue. That's their issue. If it's not something I'm doing or not doing, it's not. But so yes, it can do all that. And then there are those, like I said, I have conversations all the time where I have my married friends who just think I am living the absolute life of Riley. Yeah. And then there are other, and I always say, well, it's not quite what it's cracked up to be. And then there are others that are saying, I wouldn't be anything else but single.
Hey, but the thing is, both choices, or all the choices that you make, have consequences.
Correct.
You can't live a perfect life, nor does God want you to. Perfectly imperfect.
Correct.
Is how it goes. And the thing is to just accept your life as it is.
Correct.
That doesn't mean, if you do want to get married, not trying and dating and stuff. But, there comes a point where you have to just accept the life that you have and do whatever you need to do to make it work for you. Either way.
Correct. I could not have said it better. And you know, depending on the situation, the acceptance piece can be a challenge.
It's a big challenge. And I am very, very lucky. I've got friends. I mean, one thing my mom did was she really helped me make good friends as a kid and keep those friends. She fostered that in me. And I have one friend that I've been friends with since the first grade. And then I have other friends, one from the sixth grade, and then others from college. So I've got a good, solid family of choice, I call it. You know, they're not by blood, but they're by choice. So that is something that, you know, we all need our own pack.
Correct.
Right? You know, and you know, one of my dear friends is not a pet or dog person, but she knows that I am, and she respects that.
Correct.
It's very interesting.
So, in terms of being a public relations consultant, which kind of came first? Was public relations your field, and you do, you know, the author and the canine stuff on the side? Or did it all work together?
Okay, here's how it goes. I was the first female sports writer for my college newspaper. Okay. And my goal was to get into the men's locker room. But they put me on women's sports. Right? All righty then. That's where it started. And then right out of college, I got a job in TV news, and I was a writer and a producer. But, you know, I'm not a death and destruction person. It just
That's right.
Out of me. It's just, you know, it's right. So like everything's pressure. I mean, you know, we had to cut the tapes that went along with the stories and run them down to be on the show right there. It just was too much for me. So from there, I got into public relations. And my first week in public relations, the American Ballet Theater came back to the United States, and I had to go to this gala where Mikhail Baryshnikov was doing a solo dance right in front of me. I mean, It was incredible. Here I go from death and destruction to sitting and watching Mikhail Baryshnikov. You know? So I was just like, wow, I found my niche. And I did my first job in PR was in movies and things like the American Ballet Theater. I did Dirty Dancing. I did Kiss of the Spider Woman. A lot of really great films. So then from there I got into TV. I did PR for Blossom, for the Biker Mice from Mars. And then from there, I ended up doing travel PR. So I got to travel the world, but I was by myself. Right. So that's kind of how I learned how to take care of myself by myself and to be alone. And then, like I said, I quit my high-powered job traveling the world to move in and take care of my dad. So that just gave me time to write. You know, the one thing that I needed something of my own while I was taking care of my dad. So at night when he'd go to bed, I would write. And it really helped me during that time. So that's how I got started.
Well, you just brought up another interesting point in terms of writing. Writing can be cathartic. Yes. In terms of being able to get it out, because I write in journals. I write in my journals, so forth. That's my way of talking to God or talking to whomever or just getting it out. I mean, it's like I'll put things in my journal that I may not say to somebody else because I got it out of me. So writing can be cathartic. And I've had many authors who've gone through various experiences say it was the writing that saved them.
Yes, it's true. I mean, if you're writing authentically, too, you work through a lot of issues. I did, and one reporter asked me, "What's your advice for other writers?" And basically, I took a lot of naps. I cried a lot. Yes, and I just sort of went through the feelings that I'd had at the time, and I worked through them through my writing.
You know, I know for a fact there's energy out there beyond us, because I cannot tell you the synchronicities that have come about over the years, and even right here on Saturday mornings in the studio. And what I'm about to say is another one of them. You just mentioned about being alone, and I just read this morning, literally here at the studio, Mastering Loneliness and Solitude. Loneliness is the ideal of being in solitude from a scarcity mindset point of view. Just the word lonely conjures up images of a sad and gloomy person with no friends or family who has reached a very low point in life. But on the opposite side of this coin could be someone who has purposely chosen to be alone in order to gain clarity, to connect with themselves, and to connect to source energy. For example, meditation is best done alone, yet there is no association of sadness or loneliness with it. There is a misconception about what loneliness is because society has labeled it as something that is bad or downgrading. It's viewed as a negative to spend time alone. What most people think of loneliness is something like, quote, if I'm lonely, it's because nobody likes me, unquote. Or, quote, if I'm lonely, it's because there is something wrong with me, unquote. All of us have been programmed to believe that in most contexts, being alone equates to loneliness. But that's a limited belief you can change. Perception is everything, and the only perception that matters is yours. I'm not saying you should strive for being alone. What I am saying is that being alone doesn't mean you need to be out of alignment. Loneliness is a feeling that comes based on the definition we give to it. What if we thought of loneliness as something positive? What if we started to interpret loneliness rather as it being the perfect time for us to align with our inner being without external distractions? In other words, it's the perfect time to look within and fill all the voids we have with what we already have within us. Nothing on the outside can fill the void of feeling lonely. You can feel full right here and right now, even if there is nobody around you. Now, I just read that this morning, and we're talking about this now.
Wow. Where did you read? That's great. That's exactly it. That hits the nail on the head. I don't feel lonely unless I stop and think about it, and then I go, I must be lonely. Because my life is so full. I've got I've got these Australian shepherds. They love dog sports. They do all sorts of things, and I have to walk them and I have to feed them. I'm never alone. I'm never lonely, and except for the times that I go, oh, I should have a partner.
Right.
And, I still do that. I still do that, and it's okay.
Yes, it is. No, yes, it is okay. I'm saying that because I do the same thing. So yes, it is okay. I mean, again, it's like the reading just said, it's really, and we were talking about it earlier about societal pressures, but at the end of the day, it really is our decision. Mm-hmm. It really comes down to your decision. So, okay, now you were talking about the news. I could not agree because I have friends who are in the media, in the news, and, I have some that were, reporters. I don't know any I do know an anchor. Let me take that back. I do know Christine Johnson, she's an anchor. But I always wonder, how do you do that from day to day? Because all the stories are always negative. They're in sound bites, and you do this every day. How many car accidents and rapes and fire burnings and robberies? And just every day that's what you're reporting on. So it's like, how do you not take that into your spirit?
Yeah, it wasn't what I needed to do. I just, I wrote the news about this man, I think it was in the 80s, Dr. Barney Clark, and he was the first artificial heart patient. And
I remember that.
Remember that?
Yes.
The Dr. Barney Clark expert. They kept giving me that story, so I kind of went with him through what was going on, and when he died, I started crying. And I thought, this probably isn't the best career for me. So I felt like I knew him. But, yeah. And then here's another thing. When I got into PR, my other client was a pet charity.
Okay.
And we were doing free spaying and neutering of Los Angeles pets. And Bob Barker was coming out to the Pound and going to announce this thing. So we had all the media there. And it was my first press conference. I was so proud of myself. And all of a sudden, all the beepers went off. And it was when Marvin Gaye's father shot him.
Oh, I remember that too.
Right where we were starting the press conference. So all the reporters, Bob Barker hadn't even stepped up to the podium yet, and all the reporters went running. I'm like chasing him. Where are you going? So that was more death and destruction. But you know, I think the whole key is, no matter if you're single or if you're married or whatever, it's a sense of purpose.
Correct.
And I feel like, for me, the dogs give me a sense of purpose.
Absolutely right. I was saying earlier, we were talking about self-care. And like I said, after my experiences, I've self-proclaimed, given myself the title Dean of Self-Care in jest. However, that does not mean if the fact that you're focusing on self, that you're not concerned about other people.
Yeah.
Because, and as they say, if your cup is empty, you cannot help anybody else.
It's true.
So, and it's also about what I was saying earlier about what do we do, because going back to your sense of purpose, what do we do in our dash between our birth year and our death year? What can be said about what was done in the dash? And this is going to your thing about purpose. Mm-hmm. We all ought to be here, or either, I mean, I think what is in the movie The Jerk, whenever Steve Martin talks about his purpose, he's found his purpose.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I forgot about that.
We all need to find our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
We really do, because that's what makes life worth living. Like you were talking about a full life. Yes.
Well, I think if you open your heart, your purpose finds you. And that's what I'm talking about. Rather than like chasing after something that society says you should have, opening your heart and being authentic and having the purpose come to you. Like the dogs are my purpose, but even more than that, we're a therapy dog team. So I get to go and watch them with special needs kids and just, you know, get my child's fix, get my kid's fix, but also witness grace in motion.
That's absolutely right. That's one of my mantras or affirmations, if you will, is something you just said about chasing. And I constantly have to tell myself, I don't chase, I attract.
Yes, exactly.
And, you know, it's kind of like, no, I'm not going to chase. I don't chase, I attract. And that's exactly what you were talking about with the purpose. It's like, well, you know, you really don't chase the purpose. You attract your purpose. And then you have to have the discernment to realize, this is it.
That's the missing piece. You're right. The discernment. Yeah.
So their names, how'd you come up with them? Seven and Paige.
Okay.
Paige Turner.
So Seven, it was a show dog, and he's a rescue, and he had the name Seven. And I tried to change it. I tried different names, and none of them were really working. And then I counted up the number of dogs I've had in my life, and he's my seventh dog.
Anyway, okay.
You're seven. And then Paige Turner, so she was a gift from one of my best friends. And my best friend's daughter, who's my goddaughter, her middle name is Paige. So I thought, you know, and I'm a writer, I thought, I'm going to name her Paige. But everybody said, you know, she needs something more than that. And then I saw, so that's after my goddaughter. And then I saw a transvestite named Paige Turner. So she's named after my goddaughter and a transvestite.
But at the same time, see, that's why I love play on words. A couple of things going on. It's not Page, it's Paige and Turner. Paige Turner. She's an author. Whenever you read a book, you turn pages. So that's what I'm saying. I love to play on words. So we have Seven, which is completion, by the way. Seven and Paige. Yes, Seven is the number of completion. And
I didn't know that.
Paige Turner. And so, like I said, Paige Turner. And now you had also the other ones. How did you name them?
Blondie, she was a blonde dog.
That one makes sense.
I named her after my favorite band, Blondie.
Okay.
So that's how she got her name. And then Baldwin was a rescue, and I kept naming him different things. It took me like 3 weeks to name that dog. But that's when the movie Clueless was out, and they called cute boys Baldwins. So I'd watched the movie, and I was playing with him. I said, "You're just a little Baldwin." And he kind of jumped up. I went, "Oh, Baldwin." And then also the author.
Right.
So it was like the perfect name. I love reading Baldwin's work. So, it worked out.
Well,
I called him Bozzy Bear.
It's interesting because, artists, authors, musicians, in terms of titles, like I'm a musician, and back in 2011, I released my first CD. 2013, I released my second one. But I always tell folks every song, the title has a meaning to it. There's a meaning for every song. And I think it's together between the two CDs is about 22 or 23 songs.
That's purpose.
Right. Each one has its title. Each one has a reason behind why it was titled that way. And that's why I have the feeling, you explained just now how the dogs got their names, which makes total sense to me. in all of the cases, it makes total sense. Because people you go out with the dogs and you call them by names, they have no idea the backstory.
Yeah.
No idea the story behind them.
People do. Paige Turner is such an unusual name. People do raise their eyebrows because I don't call her Paige, I call her Paige Turner.
Right.
So, but she fits that name so well. She's very, she's a lot of fun. She's a little athlete, and she just loves life. Oh my gosh, she is full of love and loves life. Just everything. She's very enthusiastic, and let's try this. So cool.
All right.
Seven's more kicked back. So they're both actors, right? And this is how I explain it. When Paige goes to a set to do something, she's like, "I'm here. Look at me. Aren't I beautiful?" When Seven goes to do something, he's like, "Why are we here? What do you want me to do? All right, I'll do it."
Now, see, you're describing. That's the way Mocha and Latte was. Mocha was like Paige Turner, and Seven was like Latte. Latte was always that same kind of way, like, what's going on? And Mocha was always like the one running around barking, and
Yeah.
So and it's interesting because dogs have personalities just like people do.
Yeah, they do. And that's why, a lot of dogs end up at the pound, and for some reason, people aren't getting dogs right now. There is like, oh my gosh, on my Facebook page, Susan Hartzler, author, I post pictures and information about dogs that are up for adoption all the time. There are so many doodles out there that need homes.
Wow.
There are so many great dogs. And the thing is, we're having a crisis right now, but even not within the crisis, people buy dogs because they think they're cute, like Australian Shepherds or, any herding breed. They are a lot of work.
Yes. That's the part we haven't talked about, because those of you who own dogs or pets, that's another piece of pets do. Like I said, I have low maintenance pets, but when you start getting into dogs and cats and other, they are work. They're just like children.
Yeah, they are. And, low maintenance dog would be an ex-racer greyhound. They just want to hang around, because they're raised in crates.
Right.
So that's even a good dog for an apartment. Because they just want to hang out, they just want to sleep, they just want to relax. They're great dogs. Now, that's why, like a lot of Aussies end up at the pound, because people get them because they are the cutest puppies in the world. But they are a lot of work until they're like 4 or 5. So you got to keep them busy, you got to have a plan, and they're very smart. And any of the smarter breeds, they'll get into trouble if you don't give them a purpose.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so that's why those end up at the pound a lot.
Wow.
And so that's my other thing is I want to help people get the right dog for them, so that it's a heartbreak for the person, too, if they have to rehome the dog.
Right. Well, again, it's like any other relationship. Once you've established a relationship with a dog, or it's difficult. Either if you have to break that relationship, or it changes, or they die, or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's no different if you were a dog owner or a cat owner or what have you.
Yeah. Well, and in a way, dogs and cats, they really get under your skin. They become a part of you because they're part of your routine. That is correct. So when they do pass, which is the worst possible thing, it is like losing a human. It's like losing a part of yourself.
I told you when Killer passed away, my cousins, they were in deep, they grieved, and they grieved hard for Killer. They did.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to do without Killer.
Yeah. That's how I felt after I lost Blondie. We lost Siesta when I was at college. Or no, when I was working in TV news. And it was horrible because I loved that dog. But Blondie, she did everything with me. So when I lost her, that was my first, big loss. But she died 6 months before my mom died. So she prepared me for that other loss. It's just amazing if you look at the things dogs do.
Right. Well, believe it or not, Susan, because most people ask me, what on earth are we going to talk about for an hour? But the hour has gone by.
No, it's so much fun talking with you.
And what I do for the last 3 to 5 minutes or so is I shut the mic off and give you the opportunity to promote. So you can promote the books, you can promote any book signings, you can promote your website, you can shout people out, you can promote the dog. The only thing you cannot do is say a dollar amount. The only thing you can't get into is pricing and dollar amounts, and like that you can do when people get in touch with you. But on the air, we can't do that. But anything short of that, I'm going to shut the mic off, and the microphone is yours.
Okay, I just have to say, you're great. I really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you. So you can find out about me at SusanHartzler.com. That's Hartzler. My books are on Amazon. They're also with my publisher, McFarland. And if you look up the I'm Not Single, I Have a Dog on Amazon, there's lots of T-shirts with that saying on it. So it's best to look up on Amazon my name, Susan Hartzler. But if you go to my website, I have links to my books. I have my bio. I have a lot of interviews that I've been on. This one will go there. And, drop me a note. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love for you to buy my books, support an author, support a starving author. And I hope
that's right.
I hope that what I have to say can make a difference to some people's lives.
Well, this is what I do. I always support my guests. So, is it available in Kindle format?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great, because before the end of the day, I will have downloaded both of them. And so they will be. I will get them and download them into my Kindle, and I will read them. Because again, like I said, I have a connection to dogs now, so I'm gonna be fascinated, and as well as from the bark side, dating tales from the bark side. And again, I thank you so much. I appreciate all of my guests, all of them, regardless of where they call from. But for the ones that are like 3, 4, 5 hours behind, I know that was a sacrifice. So I am extremely appreciative of you waking up early and taking the time to join me. I would have never known based on talking to you that it was 4 o'clock in the morning over there.
Good.
Because you kept there you go. You kept the energy going. So
it's not hard to do with you. You're just a delight.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that more than you know. So this is what's going to happen. I record the show. I'm going to email you in the next couple of days the YouTube link and an MP3 link. And once you get those, you are free to do whatever you'd like with them.
Cool. I will do social media.
All right. Share it out far and wide.
And you'll be on my website, SusanHartzler.com.
Well, that works for me. And so thank you so much. And we will be in touch.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great day.
Thanks. You do the same.
Okay.